problem.
Hey guys, welcome back. I'm really excited for today's interview with Khierstyn Cohen of So Stocked. Backstory, I just finished up an interview with one of our past clients, Eric Finkelman of Cali Weights, which you guys may have seen, and he mentioned that his biggest issue of the last year getting off the ground, getting to $250,000 in sales, was actually inventory forecasting. And so, of course, I was really stoked when Khierstyn came to me with an idea to cover one of the biggest headaches that entrepreneurs have, that actually in the beginning you don't realize how much this can put you out of business. And more than ever, 2020, with delays at ports, with manufacturers getting overburdened with orders, and a massive rise in e-commerce just because of COVID, more than ever, we have to pay attention to the back end side of the business, because you think your biggest problem today is traffic and sales, but it's actually staying in stock and making sure you don't order too much or too little and have your customers really angry because they're waiting months for product. So that is exactly what today's interview with Khierstyn is about. She started a inventory management software for online sellers called SoStocked.com. And I'll let her get into that, but I'm just really excited for today because this is something that if you were not aware of this as a potential big red flag in your business model, today is going to help you get more prepared for that. So, Khierstyn, welcome.
Thank you very, very much. It's good to connect with you.
I know. And, Khierstyn and I actually go back. We met through Ryan Moran, actually, through CapCon and other just friends in the space. Is a very small world, I guess. But yeah, like 3 years ago, you were an Amazon seller, and then you're now a software owner. So I'd love to, first off, can you go into a bit of a description about what So Stocked is, and then why you actually jumped out, like almost out of the Amazon world into more of a service-based business with this?
Sure. Yeah. So Stocked was started actually as a way to solve my own problems as an Amazon seller. I was looking at the bottom line, looking at, how much money we were taking home at the end of the year, and it really didn't, make sense. I was, where is our money going? We know that you get more competition, the pricing goes down, but it just seemed like there were some things that I could control that I wasn't controlling. I was looking at stockouts, overstocking, taking out loans and paying interest on loans, like all of those things that are related to inventory, and really figured that inventory was something that I could actually control versus, market saturation and all of that. And so I started digging into the inventory side of my business, trying to solve those problems, seeing that it took forever, looking for tools to help me facilitate that. And the tools that were out there weren't really working.
Yeah.
Talk to like my mastermind people, you go to mastermind friends and, what are you using? The answer kept coming back. We've tried everything. Nothing works right. We're back to spreadsheets. Right. And, that seemed to be an odd answer to me. So I figured that there's got to be someone who's willing to kind of tackle this. If a spreadsheet can do it, a software can do it. Yeah. And so that's what So Stocked really is. So Stocked is an inventory management software that responds. The thing that we found interesting is sellers, and e-com sellers, they want to understand the numbers behind things. It's their business. They want to, not just plug in, their data and have some algorithm say this is the amount you should send, trust us. They want to actually know, well, where did that number come from? What's behind the math? Yeah. And that was kind of a big red flag with some of these various different softwares. And actually the first iteration that we put out to about 25 users, it was customizable, but it wasn't understandable enough. And finally, we launched it in July of 2019. By the end of the year, we completely ripped it out and rebuilt it from scratch.
Oh, wow.
Based on spreadsheets, actually. We said, okay, send us their spreadsheets. Tell us what's working about them, what's not working about them. And then we were actually able to get rid of the idea of an algorithm let people build for themselves using their data. You know, what's most important to you? Is 90 days sales most important? Is last year's sales most important? You know, what are those things that are most important to you? Every business is different. So it became extremely customizable, very understandable as to why the numbers were what they were. And at that point, we started seeing some mastermind groups start picking it up and just talking about it and sending more of their people our way. And we figured, you know, we've got something right. So that's basically, awesome. You know, in a nutshell, SoStocked. It's, you know, forecasting demand and creating POs, tracking all of your stuff, and knowing where everything is.
Yeah, because it honestly seems like wizardry. Like,
yeah.
You know, when you're up and going, if I were to have to manage inventory for a company, God help them, but if I had to, it would be, okay, well, Q4 is coming. Last year we sold 10,000 units. Let's order 20 this year and hope for the best. And then what happens if that guess is wrong, or if Amazon shuts down a listing and you are stuck with extra inventory, or you finally get Walmart to sign off and say, cool, we want to order 50,000 units across the US. Like, just the idea, it seems so reactive, and how to manage it through cash flow for payment terms, and how much that's going to cost you up front, and you're taking that out of a marketing budget, all that. So it just seems like wizardry to be able to properly figure out exactly how much you're supposed to order 90 days in advance when you don't even really know what you're forecasted to sell in that period.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts that, you know, that have to be factored in, and that's why it's so important to kind of look at, you know, all the data that you have, because you do have, there's certain things that you're not going to know. There's, you know, I like to say there's the science and there's the art. There's what happened before, the science is the data, and a lot of people kind of stop there with just the data, but the art is, what am I planning to do? The future planning is the art of it. Yeah. And some of that can have to do with past data, like trends. You know, you go, okay, this is what I sold last year, but I'm, you know, year to date, I'm trending up 20%. So we could say, okay, last year plus 20%. And then what are my marketing plans? Maybe I'm planning to do this huge email campaign and I'm going to sell an extra 5,000 units during Christmas or something. Yeah. That can go in there, but it can't go in there, you know, a month before if it takes 90 days for you to get product to, you know, your final destination.
And then does SoStock help with cash flow forecasting in terms of not just how many units you need, but essentially what you need to pay a manufacturer over what terms as well?
That's one of the next steps. So we have a couple of different things that we're doing. Inventory, we had to get that really right. Amazon threw a lot of curveballs at us for their inventory planning. So we've been shifting on that. But, you know, integrations with other platforms and cash flow modeling are the two main things kind of on the target board.
Okay, great. For someone considering moving from a spreadsheet to software, what is the benefit of moving off of a spreadsheet into actually paying for a solution?
Sure. So the first thing that you're able to do with the software, specifically that plugs into, say, your API, is it's able to analyze data a lot better. There's there's a lot of things that you can do in a software, and for people who are, you know, say maybe they have one or two products and maybe don't need a software yet, we have built a free spreadsheet that does a lot of the things that our software does, has a lot of the, you know, best practices that we've baked into the software also in the spreadsheet, but we can't do everything. So for example, if you stock out, you know, usually you're able to get the data for, you know, this period of time I sold this many units. Well, maybe there was a stock out in the middle of that. Are you filtering that out? And that's something that a software can do, is filter out stockouts and say, okay, instead of, you know, 30 days, you actually had 20 days of sales. So your daily average was this instead of your daily average being. It's something that actually Amazon's algorithm doesn't even do. So it's important to understand that whatever software you're using, it has a good way of filtering out stockouts, and a sophisticated way of filtering out stockouts. Because if if your listing was suspended for half a day and you sold 30 units instead of 100 units, that should be looked at as a potential partial stock out and not counted in the average, but sometimes it is being. So you need to understand what a stock out, what you want to call a stock out, before you actually, you know, can trust that stock out tool.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And with your software, like, who's the ideal kind of person that you think benefits the most from this?
Yeah. So our tool is fairly sophisticated.
Yeah.
So, I mentioned, like, if you've got a couple of SKUs, maybe there's other tools that are available, other, say, software suites. They have some very introductory tools. Yeah. Our tool is more for, say, so you're starting to get into 5, 6, 7, and low 8 figures. Specifically, we're on Amazon right now, but we're going to, in the next few months, be launching Shopify, Walmart, eBay, Deliver, and ShipStation, because ShipStation integrates with a lot of different platforms.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because that's one thing that I did want to ask you, just, because if someone is watching this or listening to this right now, they're going to SoStocked, and it says Amazon sellers, and if they're thinking, well, I sell on Shopify, but that's okay. That's okay. So, how does someone get that spreadsheet that you mentioned that might be a better fit for someone with 1 or 2 SKUs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can share the link with you. We could probably drop it in the show notes. Otherwise, you can reach out to me at actually, let me see if I can grab the link in a second, but you can also reach out to me at sostocked.com/connect, and there's a lot of different resources there.
Awesome. And we'll make sure that any links that we do talk about in this interview are in the show notes at Khierstyn.com or under the YouTube video if that is where you're watching. So
perfect.
Beautiful. Okay, so getting into Amazon, there's a few things that I think we can definitely talk about best practices for online sellers in general, because a couple of things that we mentioned before is that people lead with marketing first. They're so focused on, and this is due to inexperience, but they're super focused on customer acquisition that they don't really consider inventory until it's a little too late. Yeah. So I'd love to talk a little bit about how you can be a bit more forward thinking in your inventory when you are marketing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot about communication, coordination. So one of the things that we have found, we've started out as marketers, and most of us are very marketing focused. The entire industry is generally very marketing focused. And a lot of us, really may not have had a lot of experience of running other, physical products businesses before. So we're just starting to realize, especially as, things are changing with logistics, changing with, storage policies, that we have to get good at this. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the issue has been forced over the past year and a half. So communication is key. And I often throw the marketers under the bus on it, but I actually realize that it's the inventory team's fault too for not giving information and asking for information. So it's a kind of a two-sided street. Your team should be communicating. When, the marketers want to market something, they want to say they, went on a webinar, they found this, great hack. They go and they try to apply it as fast as possible, but they don't vet out the inventory because they're so excited about doing this, seeing if it'll work, and then it works so well it stocks them out. Mm-hmm. And that's where marketing actually can hurt a business, because the amount of loss with a stock out, a lot of people don't think about. They think about, lost revenue. They think about, okay, if I have to airship something, if I have to re-rank my product, if I'm selling on a platform such as Amazon, if you're selling on Shopify, your customers are unhappy. Maybe they find somewhere else to find a similar product. All of those things are occurring. The other stuff that we don't think about, the stuff that is not quantified in that loss, is the amount of money you paid to run into a stock out. So if you were paying a ton in sponsored ads to drive yourself into a stock out, if you had just done the math before and sold those at, without those costs or without the discounted coupon or whatever you did, and then when it comes to using a marketing agency, and you're paying a marketing agency to stock you out, and you're paying, your ad platform to stock you out, you're paying your agency to stock you out, and so that's the part that we don't really think about in terms of the losses that occur with the stock out.
Yeah. Because it's not just tertiary losses from customers going to your website, not being able to order, or refunds because they can't get product quickly. It's what you paid to cause that problem.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Rough.
Yeah. So just simply giving, saying, hey, this is the plan. We think that we're going to use these particular products are going to start, an ads campaign. We think it's going to increase sales immediately by 15%.
Yeah.
And then the inventory manager can plug that in and say, oh, you're going to stock out before we can get inventory there. We'll make the order bigger next time, but cut it back to, you could go to an increase of 8% and we'll still have a little cushion. Mm-hmm. You never want to run to zero where you say, okay, our stuff is arriving today and we're stocking out, the day after.
Yeah.
You always want to have like that little bit of a cushion in case anything goes wrong. But the whole point is that marketing is giving data to inventory so that inventory can actually say, yes, we're a go on that.
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. So when should a business be looking at inventory forecasting, and how often should they be updating a model and putting in orders, I guess?
Right, yeah. So it often depends on the type of business you have, but if, we use an example of, say, a private label or, your own branded products that you're getting, say, from overseas, which could be, 60 to 90 days lead time, you should be, doing 6 to 12 months worth of projections and really planning that out, at one point during the year. And then every month you should be, reassessing that.
Okay.
And, seeing if you need to be adjusting. And some people are even doing every week, depending on, on their business, especially when it comes to transferring it into, the facilities. If you have a third-party warehouse that's holding your stuff, the transfers are going to be more frequent. But you always have, transfers on one side and then orders on the other side. And so there's really two things that are happening at the same time.
Makes sense. So when you talk about the concept of inventory-minded marketing, that syncs your team up, what are a couple best practices that you wish every entrepreneur did in this space? Yeah,
so one of the things that we have put together, which I can give you the link to, but it's at sostock.com/inventory-planner.
Okay.
And that will give you, I believe we also have the spreadsheet that I mentioned attached to that. But one of those, what that really is just a form of all of the different types of, ads and, how marketing sees things playing out. They say, these are the most important things, and we have this coming up on this date, it's ending on this date, this is how many units we're going to, be moving. And so they would fill that out for every single product, give it to the inventory team, then the inventory team can use that. So that would be, the first best practice with the marketing team giving data to the inventory team. And then the inventory team should really be giving us certain reports to the marketing team. Gotcha. And those reports would be, a stock out risk report, right? What products are potentially going to be stocking out? You need to back off of the marketing. Sometimes you have products that are stocking out and the marketers do the opposite because they don't know, there's no communication. So that's where we say inventory needs to let the marketing team know, hey, you're at risk of stocking out. Can you figure out how to, there's going to be a 3-day stock out. There's going to be an 8-day stock out. Those are very preventable if they're actually approached in the correct way. So you have that stock out risk report. The other ones would be an overstock report. How many, what products do you have over 60 days worth of stock, over 90 days worth of stock? And then what are your slow sellers that maybe you should not be restocking?
Gotcha. Because it ends up hurting your Amazon account.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also there's a lot of holding costs when you have overstock or you have a product that, is just really slow moving. And sometimes you can make smaller orders, but if you have to make large orders, you're making a 1,000 unit order on product that moves 3 units a day, that may not be the best place to put your money.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that has become, specifically in the Amazon space, a massive headache this year are Amazon's restock limits.
Yes.
For anyone who maybe is new to Amazon, doesn't know what these restock limits are and why they could be such a pain for a seller. Can you just walk through what are some of the parameter changes that Amazon's put in place in the last 18 months?
Yeah. So we've been used to having unlimited storage. Sometimes Amazon will put a little bit of storage limits, but it wouldn't be very noticeable. So we've been, basically all sellers had kind of carte blanche to, dump their stuff at Amazon and leave it there for as long as they wanted. They'd have these fees, you'd have long-term storage fees, and Amazon was using those to try to discourage people from, having stock there too long. But apparently it didn't do a good enough job at that. The recent changes have been that these restrictions came down last year, called ASIN level restrictions. ASIN is just the Amazon standard identification number, and the problem there was that if you had a new product that you could only you'd only have 200 units, and every product had its own restriction. So that was a challenge in itself, and that upset the apple cart quite a bit. We had to, we were given notice. We were given notice what was happening, and so we had to completely retool our system, but we were able to retool it in advance. And then April of 2021 came, April 22nd of this year, and they changed it up again. People were complaining about these limits, and so they changed it up, and they did something called storage type limits.
Yeah.
And storage type limits basically said, we don't care what the product is, you have a specific restriction on your total account. So your account is allowed to have this many units. Doesn't matter if one of the units is this size and one of them is this size, it's a unit.
Yeah.
It's the same. So they put those restrictions on, and people thought it was going to be a good thing. It ended up being a pretty bad thing for most people, because all of that stuff that had just accumulated over, the years of slower moving products that they really were kind of like, marketers were not paying attention to, that became a drain on the storage. And so you have a lot less storage. And what Amazon basically is, to understand why Amazon makes these policies, it's important to understand that Amazon really, they never intended to be a storage facility.
Yeah.
They always intended to be a distribution center.
Yeah.
So that is the big shift. They're saying, hey, we're a distribution center. We're not going to hold your stuff. You need to send that stuff to some other warehouse. And so that's really what these things have done.
Makes sense.
But now marketers have to be responsible for actually getting rid of some of those
long-lasting items, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So with the restock limits, I feel like, it was 200 for new sellers last time for new product, but with the restock limits changing across the account level now, is the amount of stock you have dependent on the amount of SKUs or ASINs that you have, or how would you say Amazon determines that? Yeah, so Amazon says certain things, but then they kind of they're able to do whatever they want. So Amazon. Yeah.
Yes. They're looking at a couple of different things. They're looking at your sell-through rate, right? And their sell-through rate, they're very clear that your sell-through rate looks at your past 90 days of sales and the average amount of inventory that you have in that time period at the Amazon facilities. And that determines your sell-through rate. So whereas sometimes we think of a sell-through rate as a 30-day thing, they're looking at 90 days. So if you had stuff that, 60 days ago, you had slow sales because you stocked out and your amount of sales decreased, your sell-through rate, kind of drops because you've got all this stuff that's not selling while your best seller is, out of stock. Yeah. So that kind of lives with you for that period of time. And they're looking at a couple of things. They're looking at, your sales over those periods of time. And because they don't do what we talked about in stocking out, where you give the benefit of the doubt that those stock out days you would have sold that, they're not looking at that. They don't care. So your limits drop when you stock out. So it gets really hairy. The only other thing they do say that they do is they're looking at, seasonality. We don't really feel confident with how they're looking at seasonality, because we have had sellers, who were know that how their products do in a season, and they still are not given enough room to put into place what they need to. It's really changed a lot of the way people are marketing. If they could put a lot more inventory in, they would have pushed marketing a lot harder. So they've had to kind of, start rethinking the entire way that they market, not just the entire way they do their inventory.
It just seems, as an outsider, it seems like a really bad business play on the surface for Amazon to do that, because when you restrict how much inventory a seller can move, you're literally restricting how much revenue they can generate for Amazon. So why have they done the restock limits if it's capping sales for some of their sellers?
Yeah, so part of the reason that they have kind of come out and said they're not too forthcoming with all the reasons that they do what they do, I think they're handling it like a Band-Aid, they just rip the Band-Aid off, and I feel like they should have given some warning and let people get their ducks in a row, because when they made the change, they announced it the day that they made the change.
Ooh.
Yeah,
okay.
So that was big. The IPI limits that we talked about before, they announced it, and we had months to prepare for it. They announced this, and it was, immediate. And so that was very surprising, but it was due to Prime Day. Apparently, it was partially due to Prime Day that they probably did it so quickly. Yeah. And they made that shift. But the issue that happened is they started running out of space. We've seen it take 3-4 weeks to get inventory checked in. It arrives at Amazon and it sits in their parking lot or something like that, and it's not getting checked in. And so one of the things they've said is that they're trying to get enough stuff checked in, and they're trying to give everyone a chance to get their stuff in. So they're trying to be more fair, and in being more fair, to everyone, they're being, unfair to
everyone.
Some people. Everyone. Yeah.
I get it, but I see it is a Band-Aid, because what can Amazon do? They only have, they're the largest distributor in the world, if not one of them. And e-commerce has gone up, I don't even know how many % in the last 18 months. They don't have room for anything. And if sellers aren't moving inventory, they literally, they almost have to penalize everyone, because the sellers that are selling and moving that inventory, they can't sell fast enough because Amazon doesn't have space in their warehouse.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and that's why, there's a couple of different things that they look at when they're looking at your inventory performance score. Yeah. But the most important one is sell-through, because, you look at excess inventory and sell-through, and stockouts, actually. Those are 3 of the 4 things, and those all are, they affect the same thing. You stock out, it affects your sell-through rate. You have excess inventory, it affects your sell-through rate. So sell-through really is the metric that you should be focusing on. Yeah.
Good call. I know a good practice I saw, I thought it was a good practice, again, not an Amazon seller here, but in 2020, I saw that the sellers that were set up with FBM and FBA actually were able to keep selling when Amazon couldn't stock their stuff. So I'm curious, as a practice moving forward, would you recommend that people operate out of an FBM and an FBA model just to kind of have that backup? Or
yes, that's one of the things that we've actually been telling people that since last year, and it's kind of, Amazon's kind of almost telling us to do that without telling us. There are a couple of different reasons to do it. The first reason would be, I don't believe that you should let anyone have all of your stuff. Yeah. In the second Christmas that I sold, I sent all my stuff to Amazon, and they lost it until after Christmas, and then found it right after Christmas. So if I had kept some of it for myself, then I would have, been able to sell. Do something. Yeah. So that was a big lesson. One of the things we're doing right now, we have some stuff on a boat, but we don't know that the boat is going to actually come up with, get stuck in customs, get stuck at the port. Those things have been happening. So we have our seller holding on to, or our supplier holding on to extra inventory in case we have to airship it. We're not going to airship it if we don't have to, but that's the kind of thought there. So if Amazon has your stuff, if you're sending stuff into Amazon, they are not checking it in. Yeah. You have FBM. The other thing that FBM does is, if you stock out, the FBM sales count towards your restock limits. Gotcha. So your restock limits don't crash.
Makes sense. Yeah. Can you, I've seen sellers do different listings for the same product, one through FBA, one through FBM. Can you have multiple seller accounts and do that to try to cheat the system?
It's actually kind of against terms of service. I know that there are some people that do it, different seller accounts. They don't want different seller accounts selling the same product when you own those seller accounts. Yeah, it's a little bit considered manipulation or against terms of service. That's
exactly why I thought of it. I'm like, is there a backdoor to some of this? But yes, with that. So, awesome. Well, I love to ask the question, like, is there anything that I should have asked you that we haven't yet covered today?
I'm not sure. We covered quite a lot. Yeah. I mean, we didn't get much into cash flow. I would say cash flow, I don't talk too much on that subject. We are going to get into building out a cash flow modeling system in the software. But one of the big tricks for cash flow that a lot of people should know about is that you can actually use your supplier a lot of times to help mitigate some of that cash flow in a couple of different ways. And, especially if you have a good relationship. So you have Amazon or wherever you're storing your stuff, you have your third party, your local warehouse for transferring stuff in for your excess inventory. And then you should be using your supplier as a warehouse. They'll actually warehouse your stuff probably, even up to 3 months for free. So that can be a significant savings for you. And then one of the things that you can do is, you send say you order, 3 months worth of inventory, 4 months worth of inventory. You pay them the 30%. So you have 30% and then 70% final payment. You pay them the 30% on all of that inventory. They produce it. You say ship 3,000 units or whatever it is. They ship the 1 month's worth of inventory. You pay them for only what they ship. They're storing your stuff without charging you for it, and you only pay them as you ship it. So they're storing it for free. They're not demanding that you pay them until it actually leaves their possession. So this is one of the ways that you can really help to streamline your cash flow, while making sure that you have this backup supply of inventory being produced and you're not waiting for the factory to manufacture it.
And you're not also paying massive storage fees for the 10,000 units that you have manufactured.
Exactly.
That's a great tip. It's a great tip. So awesome. Okay, well, this was great. I love this subject. This is a subject people need to talk about more because it's the hidden thing that can really sink or make a business with that. So Chelsea, this has been awesome. If people want to learn a little bit more about you or So Stocked, where is a good place to send them?
Yeah, so sostocked.com. Also, you can reach out to me at sostocked.com/connect. I have a link to the demo of the software. I'll have my socials. I know that you mentioned Clubhouse. I've got my little Clubhouse on there. I need to be on there a lot more, but it's there.
Yeah. I want to. I like sign up for a room. I strategically, when Clubhouse was a big thing, I'm like, great. I think you needed to host 3 rooms, and then you can apply to get your own club. And so I did that. I did the 4 rooms, and I'm like 3 months later, I'm still waiting for it.
Wow. Yeah. You've probably got a big backlog or something.
Yeah. And I also should probably get back on Clubhouse because that app is super fun.
Yeah, it is.
Super fun. And TikTok, but that's dancing.
That's fun for another reason. Yeah.
Exactly. So awesome. Chelsea, this has been great. Guys, I'm going to link to all resources below this video, or you can go to Khierstyn.com and check out the blog to see the show notes for this. But awesome. Thanks so much, Chelsea.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this interview. If you like me doing interview styles like this to help you find better solutions for your e-commerce business, let me know in the comments below, as I don't do them too often anymore. And apart from that, guys, if you are digging the content, be sure to hit subscribe because we release content like this that's going to help you release your e-commerce brand, scale it, etc., and go from there. But anyway, guys, I will turn off my Slack notifications for the next time I record a video, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, cheers.